Hey guys, Josh here from madcharcoal.com. Today I'm going to be a little bit out of my comfort zone. I'm going to use black paper and we're going to go with some white chalk, General's charcoal, which is not charcoal because white charcoal doesn't exist. It's just chalk. They call it white charcoal, but we're also going to go with some white pan pastel and this palette knife with the foam tip. That's just called a soft palette knife there. I'll list the materials that I use in the description. I also have this kneaded eraser that I'm going to use and maybe the other detail eraser. This reference here that I have on my iPad is actually also going to be linked in the description so you guys can follow along. There's a 22 by 30 sheet of Arches cover, but in black. Now let's get started. I'm going to try to make it kind of figurative, so kind of longer, and then have the face up here and whatnot. So it's going to be out of my comfort zone because I usually just do faces, but let's see what we can come out with this one. Try to be quick with it because white drawings with on black can be very time consuming, and because you're kind of working from light to dark instead. So I'm using the pan pastel to kind of establish what where the light's hitting. Above the eyes here, a little bit. Don't get lost in the details too quickly. We want to establish the basics first. Cool. Let's see. Little by little, kind of working large to small, or attempting to at least. That's the goal here. We're gonna have to do a lot of the drawing with the eraser. What I'm doing is I'm adding a lot of light, and then I'm gonna come back in with the eraser and then start to erase in some details, if that makes sense, because we gotta work opposite of what a normal black on white drawing is. So I'm gonna come in with the eraser in a second, but first I wanna get a little bit more in about information down here. There's gonna be like some lights kind of hitting on the sides too from the reflection of her hair and shoulders and like that. She's wearing like a robe or something like that. So I think the bottom hand is gonna be there, and then the top hand is gonna be somewhere around here. So we'll roughly kind of jot that in. Maybe this is gonna be a little bit lower over here into the side. It's okay. I don't want to get too exact here yet, so I'm going to keep working the face to kind of start things off. It's important to have the face pretty accurately, like an anchor for the rest of the drawing. Naturally, when people look at artwork of other people, naturally they tend to look at the face first, kind of work everything off of that. So we're going to make sure that the face is solid before we start to really work a lot on the figure part of it. Even though it's not too much that's going to be showing about the figure. Looks like we've gotten a little bit too high on here, so we're going to lower that down here in the darkness of sides of the mouth there. Something like that. It's way too bright on those teeth, so I'm going to dull it out. So it looks a little bit odd. I think there's not supposed to be any light there. So starting to be able to see a little bit of something there. I'm not too worried about the outside edges. I'm concerned about where the focal point is, which is there. Might come in with some white chalk and start to establish a little bit more of the proportions, but also this is supposed to be lighter, but it's supposed to come out a little further here. So I'm going to do that in a second. No details in the eyes just yet because we're still kind of establishing where they belong. It's already looking a little bit better. I'm going to take this piece of white charcoal and I'm going to start to search those highlight areas. It's a little bit different than the pan pastel because it's less soft. It's harder. You can get a little bit more detailed with it, but it doesn't cover as much space. So that's why I do most of the coverage with the Pan Pastel. I kind of just make some markings and kind of details and add more accurate lines with this. I don't use it for the majority of the drawing, mostly details and things along those lines. Let's see if we can. It's a little bit confusing of an area here to get this right proportionally. The reference is actually kind of blurry as well, so I have to work with what I have. It's not the clearest of references, but that's okay. I can make it work. Now that we have that, we're going to try to see if we can erase in some of these shadows. Or erase out the shadow, I would say. Usually I'm erasing some highlights, but this time we're working the other way around. Every time I use a kneaded eraser, I'm like readjusting the tip of it like that, so that I have better chisel shape to work with. Kind of like if it's a piece of charcoal. I don't treat it any different. I just think of it as subtraction instead of addition. But I'm still drawing with it. I'm not trying to fix mistakes, I'm trying to draw with it. Just slightly lower still on this outside part of the mouth. The darkest points are on the mouth are right inside the outsides of the lips. So we're going to make sure to darken that while maintaining accurate proportions. We are getting a little bit better looking of a face, although it's not quite where I want it to be. Trying to work quickly for you guys. So you guys skip on if you guys would like, but I will say a little bit of tips on the way, so just be aware of that. Alright. So what's going on with the nose here that I gotta fix. Outside there. There we go, that's a little better. A little better. The nostril here. This nostril's pretty clearly here. This was lost in the shadow, so I'm not really making it that clear there. If you guys want, I could actually move you guys in while I work on the face a little bit. That way, you can kind of see some details and you could download the reference if you need. It's just a Pinterest reference. Okay. Pretty happy with where it's headed. Now I'm going to come back in with the Pan Pastel, reestablish some of those lights and kind of fix up those shapes, those larger shapes. Now that I'm a little bit more aware of where I should place everything. It's a balance between proportion and value. And I'm trying to find that balance. All right. There's quite a bit of a bright highlight here on the nose. So I'll use a tip to make that. We're going back up here for the forehead in between the eyebrows. Okay. can always erase in a little bit more of those shadows behind the neck here, because we're kind of losing that. So I'm going to erase that in a bit. But first I'm going to take this white charcoal, or white chalk, I should say. We're going to start to add in a couple of harsher lines for some texture. Kind of where it should belong. Little spots like that. Kind of where the light's going to catch extra bright. And teeth there. This is very bright here on the chin. Just kind of make sure that that's nice and bright. I don't really worry too much about the outside edges. I kind of let those flow out, especially in the drawing colored like this. Just pushing at this point. Pushing lights, blending them in. Looking a lot nicer. Okay. I think we've beat the devil out of this one a little bit, but still not exactly where I want it to be, but it's getting there little by little. Now let's a little bit more fluid with the body here, with the rest of the body here, since it's not going to be the focal point, but it is an important part of the drawing. To be lighter there. Looks like we got some light hitting here, so we can get the effect of the photo. We're also going to have, let's draw on these fingers a little bit, very lightly. Hands are not easy to draw, but it looks like we're getting some highlights from the light source kind of hitting from like this angle. So we'll see if we can effectively portray that. I'm blending a lot with my fingers. If your art teachers tell you not to do that, don't do it. If I'm your art teacher, then do whatever you want. Okay. That's a little bit rough since I was using the white chalk, so I'm going to come in with this, with the pen pastel again, soften it all up. A little bit of the bright is hitting there, a little bit hitting there. Okay, this should be darker over here on this side, so I'm gonna erase some of that. It's a little bit too bright as well, so I'll try to see if I can remove some of this. But I still like to keep those hints of the light hitting there. There we go. More shadow shapes here. Actually, we have some hair coming in through here, so we'll make it look like hair by erasing some lines through there. This video is going a little bit long. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, bearing with me, and following along. Okay. Need this shape here for the neck. And then we're losing this shadow, so I'm going to pop it back in right here. So we're starting to get that effect. Now I could just keep going on and on with this piece. If you want to see it finished, now that I see that I'm taking a really long time on it, it's not any simple task to make a white on black drawing. But when it's finished, I will make sure to upload it to my Instagram. and maybe TikTok, we'll see. But glad you guys hung out with me while drawing. This is a white on black drawing. I'd love to see what you guys can create with the same technique. I will see you guys in the next video. If you guys like my work, you can go check out what you can buy from me. There's prints and originals from madcharcoal.com/shop, or click the link in my bio. I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.